looking at risks which may arise from transferring analog business into digital business. And we're trying to look at where these risks come from and why. So, and what we see here is that new digital business models emerge with digital twins, big data, predictive maintenance. Whatever we saw, whatever you came from which industry, if it is harvesting or medicine or cooking or switch production, if you go digital, then you're in another technological field. So, and this technological field, there are other players already, but the digital twins are relate to software. We saw that we built the reality a double time, so we need software to do that. We analyze big data, which relates to hardware and software, to perceive these data quickly, huge amounts of data, to look at what's happening in the market and how the market moves and what the data will tell us. And then we have predictive maintenance over here, which relates to sensors and connectivities. And this is reflected in this curves here. New digital business models generate new patent applications in these fields of software, hardware, software, and connectivity. You see here that hardware and software nearly fit out the same numbers, and connectivity is up here, which may be an effect of 5G and the greater extent of use to connectivity and the new applications. So we're going to focus on the later steps, what that means if we see these curves and what that means for our business, where the threats come from and how we have to react.
Okay, we spoke about competition already. So we've first seen it in the context of the IP in the market under the market perspective, as Plamina already introduced to us. So for us, from the risk side, of course, new competition is of course also a risk factor. So just this slide should just illustrate somewhat the dimension we are talking about. Here you see the top 25 companies listed that work in the self-driving vehicle space over a period of 6 years, and you can see that the top company here is the Samsung Group, and there's already over 600 patent applications filed at the EPO in this just 6 years period. So this is just should just a bit illustrate the dimension of the space that we are actually dealing with. So talking about the digital business ecosystem, we have also seen from Andreas and from Isabella already before those new layers that are introduced beyond the physical product or the services that were there at the outset before the transformation, which relate to sensors, connectivity, data analysis, and digital services. So there's a completely new set of competitors we expect from software companies, but also from data processing companies. And this will of course lead, for us also to an enhanced risk of whatever they have in terms of blocking IP. You can see patents here. So there will be a much increased FTO risk from our side as well. So the business sectors, they will be dissolving, and much more open competition will come in, and that will be the case, of course, for our project as well. Speaking about digital ecosystems and platforms, maybe just one remark. In addition, for completeness, Idoia illustrated that we want to be at the top left edge, where we would be an ecosystem driver. We have to keep in mind that probably not everyone can be an ecosystem driver. So there's also the theoretical risk, for example, that such a digital platform already would exist. So this is a risk that also has to be taken into account. Like this, we would find ourselves in this kind of black ocean situation where we could probably not compete and would need to be more leveraging whatever those platforms have in terms of weaknesses. Also, probably one other thing to keep in mind in terms of all those competition, we have to probably also keep in mind that some of those competitors, only a few, will also be complementers for us. So this is another angle that we can maybe try to take off some of those. Yeah, so just with the Black Ocean scenario, I just wanted to illustrate that there's also an advantage to be the first.
Our next point will address the role of standard essential patents. In fact, once a standard has emerged and has been set, in order to enter a market, I'm seeking especially to interoperability in the telecommunication. You have no other solution than to implement these standards, so that in the end, these standard essential patents cannot be ignored. The next question is actually why the IP risk is growing, especially through these standard essential patents. So we have here the example of the telecommunication, and we can clearly see that the number of standard essential patents is growing faster in the last year, and especially between 2015 and 2018, within a lapse of 3 years, the number of patents have grown and doubled just within this small period of time. And in fact, the more patent you have, the more risk you have to infringe one of them. I would as well add another point. In fact, standard essential patents, you can see here you have about 100,000. It will be quite difficult to identify these standard essential patents which will be needed in our product, and that leads to two different points which I would like to highlight. First one, the identification of the standard essential patents which will be implemented into the product. That will be quite difficult, maybe as well quite expensive, and maybe actually not feasible from an economical point of view. Second important point, the fact that you don't know exactly which patents are needed for your product. So in fact, it's quite unclear what is the amount of license fees you will have to pay, and will the business model still fly? And this is as well a big risk. But especially for this last point, we'll go deeper into it thanks to the contribution of James.
So, thanks, Vincent. As we learned earlier, the concrete mode infrastructure, the center of concrete mode infrastructure, is essentially data. Data is collected by sensors, temperature sensors, moisture sensors. The data is transmitted. The data is analyzed by, for example, some of our partners like Concrefy, and it's transmitted again to the worksite. So really core is this transmission. So to enable the kinds of increase in efficiency and increase in effectiveness, we really need access to these SEP patents, standard essential patents. We need to do this, of course, to avoid being sued for patent infringement. I think this is quite clear. Yeah, and if we can do this, if we can get access to this, of course, we can move forward with our business model to improve, to move toward digitalization of the machine environments and the business ecosystems.
Regarding the front concept that can be used by standard setting organization, one aspect is that there is no binding definition. We don't have a list of criteria that will be fulfilled. There is no typical royalty rate that is defined in the case law, for instance. The first aspect here we have it's the fair. It refers to the behavior during the negotiation. Both sides, this means that the licensor and the licensee are equally heard. For the second aspect, reasonable, it relates to the negotiation results. It mainly refers to the licensing rate, in fact, in this aspect. We can see that on one side, a reasonable licensing rate could be seen for the licensor, that he has to have a reward for a kind of incentive for his research, for instance, and on the other side, for the licensee and the supplier, for instance, of the patent protected product has to be able to do a reasonable profit by selling the product. The last aspect is the discriminatory aspect, and this one relates both for the terms of the agreement and also for the rates of the royalty rate. And here we have to have the commitment. This commitment requires that the licensor treat each individual licensee in a similar manner, similar way. But this does not mean that the royalty rate, for instance, has to be the same for each licensee.
So, Frederick taught us, in fact, that the whole FRIEND concept is about conduct and behavior. So there is actually no rate on that. There is no number which we can come up with and say, actually, that is 2%, you can pay 2% or 3%. So how to calculate this rate? And like everything in the life, things are not that easy as it might be, or as it is should be. So we might think of 3 different ways how to calculate these rates. For example, how about actually a fair and reasonable sharing, splitting the sharing of, let's say, profits that might be made by the licensee between licensor and licensee. Sounds good, it's fair, it is actually splitted and so on and so forth. The point is actually, what is reasonable and fair? On the other side, and I have to say, so you are talking about 25 to 30,000 patents in the standard essential patents in the region of 5G. What about if the margins are not that high, so that he does not make enough profit to pay all these guys? So that is actually a real huge aspect which might cost us actually a lot without having the profit we want to do with our business model. So, and of course, the aspect that there might be other standard, foreign standards that shall be also taken into account. So, shall we take them also as part of the whole system? Yes. Then say, okay, so we make actually a royalty cap on that. So we put a maximum, we identify a maximum allowable rate that is due for the licensee. Then these will be somehow divided, splitted among all licensors. So again, what is this reasonable cap? Who actually will define that reasonable cap, and how can it be determined? That is the real question. And then once you have it, is it the same rate for everybody? Do we have a metric to see which one of these essential patents are really important, so that we can say this one will get actually 70%, the other one only 2%? That is another question which is unanswered. So then we say actually, so let the market decide about it. Let's see if, for example, we can identify sufficiently comparable through negotiations achieved licenses, and then we can say, oh, we are actually in a comparable situation. Then we can actually take more or less the same amount. The point is actually how sufficient is sufficient, and how comparable are the comparables. So that is the first question. The second question actually, what if we see the comparable situations? gave birth to different variety of actually license rates. So in that case, we have still no answer to this question. Thank you very much.